So let me plant a seed. I know Chris Hillman was able to kind of give some ideas about, meeting topics that you guys want to hear. I would love to, and not necessarily for this one, because I'd like to talk about, planning and just sort of group think planning out, because I think that number one, it's absolutely a critical function in terms of what we do and making our days go more efficiently. But I also think that, well, I can speak for myself and say that it's one of the things that I just can't stand to do. I have to force myself to actually do it, especially the little tactical stuff day in, day out. But the thought process for kind of the balance of this week and probably all of next week, because again, I don't know if John's going to be in here, is anything that you guys want to throw out there in terms of, topics of conversation. Shoot me an email, this week, and we'll start to cover it. But, again, this is for you guys. Well, frankly, it's for me too, because I'm kind of doing similar stuff to what you guys are doing. It's just, on the franchise side versus the recruiting side. But anyway, planning, and I'm talking really more about tactical planning. Well, I guess as well as sort of more strategic planning on maybe a weekly or an ongoing basis. What are some of the tricks, tips that you guys are using in terms of how you plan every single day to actually get it done? And do you struggle with it? Who wants to start out? Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, so I every single night, I think we spoke about this just 2 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, but every single night before I leave work, I'll rewrite my next day. And, as I do tasks, I literally cross them off. Whatever's yellow is important. Whatever has a star next to it is closest to money. And I make sure that I continually stay focused, because it's so easy for me to be on the computer here doing something, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, look at the pretty deer walking by, and get off task so easily, that I force myself to constantly look at this throughout the day and remain focused. At the end of the day, you're clicking on all 8 cylinders, and that's when I rewrite to make sure I get my foresight, planning for the future, and things like that. So I really just tick things off as I do them throughout the day to keep myself focused, to make sure that I, get it done.
So for are these the big rocks? Are these the medium-sized rocks? The little rocks, or all of the above? Okay.
It's everything. And like I said, everything that's closest to money, that is right now the big rock, that gets a star next to it. Anything that is important and it has to be done today, that gets highlighted. And then all minutia, it isn't. Like, for example, my Hire Easy expires on September 6th. Post a LinkedIn survey, stuff that doesn't need to be done right this second. Just stuff like that.
Okay. All right. So you kind of go the old-fashioned route. Mr. Hillman is kind of like the old diaries that we used to have, except for it's more of a, a task list. Would you say, Chris Rosenthal?
Oh yeah, for sure. But I mean, I've got everything on here from, for example, every time I place someone, I give $200 to charity. So like I have like all that lined up. I cross them off. If I have someone starting on July 10th, July 26th, I have literally a check mark for when I last reached out to them prior to their start, so that once a week. Because I was talking to Chris recently, I don't know, within the last month, and most of his people start in what, Chris, I think he said like 2-3 weeks. 90+% of the people I'm placing are reloads. So, I mean, they could start 2 or 3 months. So I've got to make sure that I'm on top of them. Hey, you need any help? Not that I can help them with anything moving, that's the companies and stuff, but I'm on top of them.
Okay. That's great. That's great. Do you integrate any of that stuff, Chris, into a CRM system or your calendar online, or is it, I mean, is it just, this is my Bible, you know?
So, in the land of being like over the top OCD, I have a calendar also, a physical calendar, but then redundancy, I have that in electronic calendar also. So that if I'm out, I miss something, whatever, it pops right up. But no, my tasks I don't have electronically. Call me old fashioned. I'm 59 and a half. Guess what I'm doing? I'm writing it down and it feels good. And it also, for some reason, when I write it down, it feels like it commits it to memory more. I don't know why, but I need to do that for it to really cement. And then everything else is going to be written or electronic.
Okay. Love that. Love it. And I'm only 56, but I'm still a little old fashioned too. I have task lists that I'm scratching because there's something about it. And I don't know, this is not, I heard this a long, long time ago, but there's something about scratching something, off that list that kind of gives you whatever, a feeling of accomplishment or whatever the case may be. It's just, it's nice to kind of just do that on the damn things. And I even do it on my whiteboard, and I won't erase it. I'll just cross it off. I'll erase stuff at the end of the day, but I'll cross it off throughout the course of the day. Matt, how about you? What methods, tips, tricks? Is this a struggle for you? What do you do to overcome it?
Yeah, I don't know if planning's really a struggle for me. So I try to structure my days and my weeks kind of very similar in a sense. You know, I don't write anything down on a calendar. I can tell you that it all goes electronic. I don't always have a calendar with me, but my phone's
Right.
at least with me. But I try to structure my days to, at the beginning of the week, figure out some projects to work on. So right now, I'm actually been doing quite a bit of work with SRA on the Marcom side of things.
Okay.
Since we've kind of had to redo some of us, I guess, leaving SearchPath, had to put a website together, putting out a new LinkedIn page. And so I'm working, been doing some of that. So I try to take every morning and take 30 to 60 minutes to work on some sort of project for the business, not recruiting wise, not marketing in a sense wise, doing marketing calls, but some sort of project. And I use a sheet a lot of times from Mike Gianna, and I could send it out. I mean, you kind of list down, some of those tasks that you can cross off, but they're kind of ancillary things. And then I typically get into the recruiting side of the business in the morning after this call. And even before this call, actually get on the recruiting side of things. And then in the afternoon, now Mondays, I don't do this, but because I give Mondays a break, but during the week, then I'll do a few hours. It could be an hour, it just depends on where my recruiting calls are at and my submissions. Because I always have jobs to work on, so I don't really struggle with the marketing calls, but I always want to keep marketing calls going and staying in front of people. So I'll do, whether it's an hour or 2 hours a day of marketing. I used to do that in the morning, but now because we're doing a lot in clean energy, especially, a lot of those people are over in California and so forth. And to call them at 8 in the morning, my time, and it's only 5 a.m. their time, it just doesn't work. So
You don't get a warm
years ago, I
reception.
used to do all my marketing in the morning because I'd like to start out with the marketing calls, but now I've kind of switched that.
That makes sense.
So that's kind of, from that planning standpoint, I'm watching my metrics on a daily basis to see, where the focus needs to be day over day. And then I tend to do my admin stuff at the end of the day, or maybe in the evening if I have submittals, if I did a couple of interviews that I need to get those in, I'll type, get the notes out, and the resumes tend to go out at the end of the day to the client. So
when you say you watch your metrics, I mean, tell me a little bit about what you're watching and how that impacts what you do moving forward.
Yeah, so at the beginning of the year, I kind of take, do the backwards method. I'll take where I want to be financially and then break that down into, how many, and you can use your past data, but what's my average placement fee? And based on that, how many job orders do I need to have every year, or every week in a sense? How many job orders do I need to have? How many placements do I need to do? And that equates to recruiting calls. So I have this little sheet that I keep, and it has, marketing calls, recruit. So every time I get someone on the phone, I mark it here. So and then I put this, I still use, I don't know if anyone still does, I still use the RPM tool that Bartos brought to SearchPath a couple of years ago when we started working with him. So I do that every Sunday. I put in my marketing calls, or if it's the 4th of July, I do it on a Tuesday.
Okay.
But typically every Sunday, Sunday I'll put in my numbers. But you have your marketing calls, your recruiting calls, your submittals, your totals. You also have your job orders, you have your send outs, and then your placements. So all the information that I need on a weekly basis is right here. And so I could see visually. So I keep this in front of me. It's right on my desk. And so I can see visually on a daily basis, where I'm doing well or not doing well.
What are the primary metrics that you're really looking at to guide your effort?
Yeah, so recruiting presentations, marketing presentations, submittals, and send outs, first time interviews.
Okay.
Those are my drivers.
So what's your send out to placement ratio? I'm kind of going off the beaten path here, but I'm just kind of curious what this stuff is, because I love this stuff.
I'd have to go into the RPM tool. I'm sorry, did you say submittal to send out ratio?
Send out to placement. So first
Send
time
out
interview
to
to placement.
placement. It's probably around 4 to 5 send outs per placement.
Okay. What about submittal to send out? Is that pretty close to 1 to 1?
Probably a 1 to 2. I wouldn't say they always, it depends on the client. Some clients, they'll talk to just about anybody we submit. But you have a few that, they get really picky or something, or if it's a really technical role, they may not feel that it's the right fit, but probably from a submittal to send out is probably a 1 to 2 type ratio.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. I love that stuff. Mr. Hillman, tips, tricks, techniques, planning. What is it that you focus on from a planning standpoint?
Well, so I wasn't on this, but I had Greg Dorshing do a call with Mark Ragland and Patrick Reedy on this, who has a different twist on planning. So it might be worthwhile having him on as a guest speaker one morning. Okay, is going to be my suggestion, because I'm not going to steal his thunder, nor could I, nor was I on there to go through it. But the basic premise was do it on Fridays. Okay. Hammer the calls Monday through Thursday, and then Fridays plan entirely for the next week. Personally, I can't do that. I don't want to do that. Friday's my best phone day. Like, everybody calls me. So I want to hammer it, but I could see where he's headed in his methodology, right? Come up with 200 contacts and then call each of them 3 times. Therefore, you have so many calls. Anyway, something you guys might want to explore. This is, in general, though, this is something I'm not great at either. But what I do is plan throughout the day, right? So I've got tomorrow's and Friday's pages handwritten next to me. So as I'm going throughout the day and I'm thinking about things, like Chris Rosenthal said, we're kind of ADD and all over the place, and we want to jump on the next shiny lure that comes by us. Stop. Okay. Focus on what we got in front of us and then write down for other days, those other action items, that company you want to call, that candidate you want to call, that whatever it is.
Okay.
Put it on another page, another day, so you're not chasing the shiny object. So
Yep.
I try to do it throughout the day, and then I do take a half hour toward the end of the day just to turn the phone on mute, get my white page out, and start prepping for those calls. So I
Love it.
usually have a list of MPCs, MPC calls I'm going to have, and then I use stack management for candidates. Literally, my desk is filled with stacks of LinkedIn printouts. That's
Okay.
my recruiting, and they're all clipped together, and they have a post-it note on it for ABC company. Call these guys for ABC company.
Okay.
And so my afternoon is just naturally busy. I have stacks of candidates to call.
Okay. Stack
Yeah.
management.
Yeah.
Did you make that up, or did that come out of a book somewhere?
I don't know. I don't know. I
Hey,
don't know.
Chris.
I hear the phrase stack management. I'm going, okay, you got me. You got me. Is this something new that I've never heard of? No, it's just stacks of paper on my desk that I'm going to go through, but it sounds like it's a good system.
Hey,
Well, I
Chris,
mean, here's what I've seen over time though, and with the guys here at the office, so I could talk behind their back because neither one of them are on the line. But listen, I on Friday I say, how's your list coming for Monday? How's your plan coming for Monday? I know they're not doing it because on Monday they're not hitting the phone until 9 o'clock. We start our day at 7:30. Well,
Okay.
there's no reason for that. We should be coming out of the chute pounding calls. All right.
Yeah.
So the best way to know if you're planned is, are you coming out screaming right out
Yeah.
of the bat?
Yeah. Yeah.
And look, why would you want to come in like Jordan Rayboy said it the best? If you want to have, I think the statistics were like 33% more productivity, make a plan. All right. That's all I need to know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not a great plan. There's no methodology that's specific that works for everybody. But all I know is I'm going to make 33% less money. And to me, that's pain. And I operate on pain. I want to make 33% more. So dang it, I'm going to do something so I'm set up for the next day to succeed.
I love that. I
so
love that.
Chris, your LinkedIn profile printouts, are those just people that you've identified, or do Patrick and Mark feed you that information and say, okay,
They do their own 360 desks.
okay,
And then, so you're printing out those LinkedIn profiles. Obviously, most, if not maybe all of them, Chris, I would assume, don't have contact information on them, or have you gone through and gathered the contact information? Or are you just picking up the phone and calling the company they work for?
I'm picking up the phone and calling the company they work for, or I'm going into Zoom real quick and and
Okay.
just dialing right off of Zoom. It takes 2 seconds. Like Mark will stop and write phone numbers down, go to True People Search and blah, blah, blah. I can't do that. Like that's going to drive me bananas, man. I got the LinkedIn profile up. I click Zoom. I start pounding the numbers on there. I don't find them. I call the company and say, who's Joe Blow's phone number?
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Like we don't need to overthink things.
And I think I think all too often that's the problem that people have in our business, is that they do overthink it, or they do over prepare for it, and it leads to them being able to avoid actually taking action. And I think it's literally that. I think it's I got to have a little bit more information before I pick up the phone and call them. Fact of the matter is that you really don't. You know, I think just calling and having another opportunity, naturally, I think most people are going to be at least curious to have a conversation with us. Maybe not right then and there, but I got to believe they're at least curious. You know, some
Yeah.
people no, but I think most people on the whole are going to be curious.
The biggest takeaway in all of this is what you're doing working for you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you go one right after the other and make stuff happen? Like I can go day to night and really not have any breathing time at all. Okay,
Mhm.
that's working for me, but there are days where I don't, and I got to just sit back and rethink, all right, what do I need to do different tomorrow?
Yeah.
If what I'm doing is producing results, that's good. If it's
Yeah.
not, then change the dang thing.
Do something different. Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed. Rob? What
I
are your
use
thoughts?
kind of a hybrid system with electronic. I'm on Loxo for my CRM manager, and I try to keep all the daily calls and all the do lists, the call queue listed on there. And then I have also have a app on my iPad called Things. So I can schedule the separate tasks, longer term projects, things like that. And because I have found that when I go with the paper and pencil list, that was my tried and true, because I'm the youngest one here at 63. And I remember my problem is when I start going with a handwritten list, it gets out of control with my scribbles all over the place. I have no order. If I use an electronic list, it forces me to organize it as I'm putting it in.
Yeah.
So I never get into these quandaries where I'm panicky because I forgot to do something or I missed it because it's in the top right-hand corner instead of the bottom left.
Yeah.
On my sheet of paper or something like that. That helped me a lot, just being able to focus and punch out getting things done.
Cool. Love it. Mr. Shavolsky. You're the young kid in this group.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just reading through the notes. I mean, I think, again, similar to Rob, kind of a hybrid. I think the one thing I've mentioned before and try to do is, if I do think on paper with a pencil like most, but I do try to get that into Loxo, right? And when I say scan, it's not there with the old scanner, one page at a time, but on the iPhone, there's the Notes app. Very simple, very straightforward. Takes it and gets it in. And I think for me, like the candidate data sheets, I think that's where I probably use it most, right? In the sense of just need to handwrite because there's just thoughts coming through, and I just don't like hearing the typing in the background on either side. So to me, it's hard to hear a pen write. So I think that part of it, is helps me with the planning, right? Because now I have everything in Loxo as a source of truth. As far as the task, I did try and play with the Loxo tasks. It's good because it'll attach to that person, but then it just goes crazy on your calendar, on your Outlook calendar. And you have to go in and edit, is it blocked or not, and what time you want it. So, I mean, it's just very, to me, burdensome on the administrative side. So I've tried to step away from the Loxo task, and use more of the Microsoft To Do, right? Syncs up with email, in that system. So if I flag an email, it'll show up there, and try to have that and try to categorize so I know, what that is. There's some work, right? If it's a simple subject line, like I have to go in and change it, right? So there's still too much administrative side for me. But like I said, if I can get everything into Loxo, get everything somewhat into an Microsoft platform, whether it's Outlook or To Do, seems to help. Just looking through, for me I have that, blocked in the morning as we were training, with clients and candidates. And then, when it comes to that 4 p.m., again, just family side planning is hard for me at 4. So I'll do it in the morning, kind of right before this, meeting, knowing I'm an hour difference. And just that helps to focus. I'm not, to Chris Hillman's point. I mean, I think for me, I wanted to, whatever I changed today, I wanted to be working tomorrow. And so I do think I struggle if something isn't working, or if the results aren't there tomorrow, do I change the inputs, kind of thing. So I've probably done that too much, allowed myself to experiment, and look at different ways. And, I think over the past couple of days, just, stepping away from the day-to-day, I was able to kind of, call it reflect, for lack of a better term, just to figure out. So, I mean, this was, well-timed on the meeting just to try to put together. But, I think, again, where I started, a year plus ago and where I'm at today, I do feel more confident with it. I think the one thing, Rob, quick, when you said the Loxo call queue, I did try to plan off of that, but to me, it's not very user friendly once you get more than 15 names in, and there's 2 pages or 17 pages, right? You can't organize all of them. You can only organize within that page. So I did step away from call queue and use just create like a call list in Loxo, just so I can go there. Because for me, writing down names and numbers, it just doesn't work for me. So I've used the Loxo call list. So Rob, I know we don't have time. If you've solved call queue, by the sounds of the laugh, probably not, but if you solve call queue and it's actually beneficial, we'd love to hear about it later. But I don't know if anybody really has solved call queue. So that's the one kind of, how do I put a list of 100 names with phone numbers? To me, it's a call list right now. So that's my summary.
That's great, you guys. I think the important thing is one of the things that I heard, a couple of things I heard. Number one, everybody's got their system, right? And it's funny because there's there's a lot of us out here that are still a little bit old school. You know, gotta have it on the sheet of paper. And I've kind of done like what John and Rob have done, where it's sort of the hybrid between electronic, and I still take notes when I'm talking to somebody on paper, because I'm like you, John. I can hear the click. I know that they can hear the clicking. So I either need to get a quieter keyboard because I can type faster than I can write, and it sure as hell is a lot more legible. But whatever, that's a purchase down the road, I guess. But the other thing that I've heard is that everybody's planning, you know, which I think in order to be successful in this business long term, in order to have a 10, 15, 20, 30-year career in this business, this is something that you've just got to embrace in some way, shape, or form. You know, whether you do it one day a week for the entire week, you do it every single day, you do both. You kind of plan strategically on Sunday for the next week, or Friday night for the next, however the hell you want to do it. And then, you know, kind of tweak it tactically throughout the course of the week every single day. I think the most important thing is that everybody's doing something with respect to it, because without it, I just don't think you're productive throughout the course of a day, you know. All right. Anyway, happy hump day, everybody. It is 8:59. We'll all see you here tomorrow. You guys.
Ciao.